Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra. Today's topic, refrigerators and refrigeration and the climate impacts. Now this is not to be taken as a henny penny, you've got to worry about everything episode, but you can take it that way. So I will provide you with consumer advice. It's also to be taken as usual as a show about public policy and politics, and what you as a consumer and as a politically participating person should be keeping in mind. So a couple themes we'll be covering today is energy consumption, the type of chemicals being used, the power of the chemical industry, what's happening in the state of California. So I came across this concept of refrigerators as being potential climate bombs by listening to a show called Living on Earth, which referenced Inside Climate News. So to give you a brief history on this topic of coolants and chemicals and our climate and our atmosphere, well, you might remember when you were younger, when I was younger, or even before you were born, you wouldn't be able to remember, but maybe you heard about the chemicals depleting the ozone layer. Those were known as CFCs. President Ronald Reagan signed something called the Montreal Protocol, I believe, which eventually was to ban that type of chemical. Now, you might have heard me say in other shows that some of the trouble in the Republican Party for the environment started under Ronald Reagan. So why then would Ronald Reagan sign such a protocol? Well, despite the fact that many environmental organizations highlighted the fact that he was really deregulating and quite harmful for the environment, I believe the reason why he would have signed this was because at that time period there was still a Soviet Union. That Soviet Union offered competition to the capitalist countries, and well, by golly, it would have looked pretty bad if they just simply said, you know what, we're going to keep making this chemical regardless of what it's doing to the ozone layer. So that chemical was swapped out over time for different chemical compounds that, while they don't deplete the ozone layers badly, turns out they are very potent greenhouse gases, meaning they trap the Earth's heat. So citing for you from both a magazine called Future Proof as well as Inside Climate News, today most refrigerators sold in the US use R134A. It was introduced in the mid-1990s as a replacement for R12, also known as Freon, that's the ozone depleter, which ate away at the ozone layer. But as R134 grew in usage, so did knowledge that it was a potent greenhouse gas. So most American fridges are still using R134A, also known as HFC-134A, or hydrofluorocarbon, and as a chemical, HFC-134A is 3,710 times more potent than carbon dioxide at warming the planet over the near term. Now the refrigerator only uses 127 grams of this chemical, but if it's not disposed of properly, which most refrigerators in the United States are not disposed of properly, it will be released into the atmosphere. And then, according to Inside Climate News, it is basically the equivalent of burning an entire barrel of oil. So you think about your refrigerator now, and if it's not disposed of properly, and how many of us have any idea how to do that, you've just burned an entire barrel of oil. Hence people referring to the refrigerator as a climate bomb. Now, according to these articles, there's a much less potent gas that could be used for refrigeration and is in some refrigerator models, and that's called R600A, which is only 3 times more potent than CO2. So how do you find out if your fridge has got which chemical, or you're going to buy a new fridge, which chemical? How do you find it out? Well, one way you can look at the serial number, and it's going to the tag near the serial numbers, and it's going to show it there. Another way, the Environmental Investigation Agency has a buying guide, HFC-free Refrigerator Buyer's Guide, listing the growing number of climate-friendly refrigerator models. And as the host of Vox Terra just told you, near the serial number sticker on its sidewall is the only way to tell for certain what refrigerant your device actually uses. Now, another interesting bit of information from that Environmental Investigation Agency is that R600A is also very energy efficient. So that gets us next to the other issue with refrigerators. According to Future Proof, they are the most power consumptive appliance most likely existing within your household. So swapping out for a more energy efficient refrigerator can also really help reduce your climate or overall pollution impact. Well, what about the politics of this? Why has the US been so slow to adopt and change its chemicals? Why is the industry not advertising what chemicals what and tell you, hey consumer, you can buy a refrigerator with a less toxic or a less greenhouse gas laden alternative? And why are companies beginning to switch their chemical coolant? Well, according to Inside Climate News article, GE and other refrigerator manufacturers are in the process of switching from HFCs to isobutane or climate-friendly alternatives like the ones we just discussed. The companies are driven by requirements recently adopted by California. Now, I want to point out the state of California because whatever you may think about the Democrats and liberals and all that kind of thing, when it comes to these environmental issues here, the state of California is driving positive change when it comes to protecting our environment and therefore our health. So according to Inside Climate News, an investigation found the decades-long delay in the use of climate-friendly refrigerants in America has been driven by the U.S. chemical industry, which manufactures HFCs. It's a multi-billion-dollar product that would likely be replaced by less expensive and more efficient climate-friendly alternatives if standards put forth by the Underwriters Laboratory, or UL, and you'll notice that UL sticker on your refrigerator as well near that serial number, didn't until recently limit their use, likely at the behest of chemical companies. Underwriters Laboratory is a private company that provides independent safety certifications for thousands of consumer products. So the Inside Climate News article says that when GE first submitted its application to the EPA back in 2008 to start to switch the chemicals, Honeywell International, one of the leading manufacturers of HFCs, opposed it, according to Inside Climate News, falsely claiming that the new chemical is highly flammable and explosive in small amounts, and that turned out later not to be true. So the Inside Climate News' take on it is why GE isn't telling you, hey, these are our more climate-friendly refrigerators, is again, there's just all this tension between these different companies. And that's probably the reason, in my opinion, why we don't even know about this issue, because of these connections with these companies and our media. Now, regarding what refrigerator you might want to get, this is a little free advertisement, which pains me a bit to do. According to Future Proof, our top pick, the Samsung RFT8 T510 1SR. And I'll post these in the below the video as well as maybe in the comment section. Will keep your food fresh and minimize harm to the climate for years to come. And another free ad. No other top-rated refrigerator can match the Samsung RT21M6213SG energy efficiency per cubic foot of space. And finally, the GE GTE18 GTNRWW refrigerator may seem like a throwback, but it's the second most efficient per cubic foot of space. Now, 2 points before we wrap up today. Let's think about these fridges not being disposed of properly and how that could have really saved a lot of trouble in the first place here. Well, you may live in whatever municipality or township or city you live in. You might wonder what to do with your hazardous waste in general and be fairly confused on how to handle that. And then maybe you talk to your town officials and they say, well, it's too expensive, we can't afford it. Well, why can't we afford it? Well, there's a couple problems. One, all products we own don't really have to include the cost of dealing with their hazards they're creating within the price of that product. If they did, then they'd all be extremely expensive. So instead, all these costs are just being pushed off onto the public, be it a heating planet, be it carcinogens, and people getting cancer, and so on. All these health effects are pushed onto the public. So therefore, the whole market's subsidized. And remember, the whole argument in favor of capitalism and this type of economy against the old Soviet system was supposed to be this is efficient, and it's really channeling our energies and our efforts towards these greater efficient goods. But if it's actually channeling our efforts towards producing products that are not paying for their own pollution costs, well, that's a problem. So we should be demanding of our politicians good, solid recycling and solid environmental policy. And lastly, while I did some free advertising here today, which pained me to do, don't forget low-tech solutions. And I'm not kidding when I say this. Remember in the old days, there used to be root cellars, where you're just simply using the stable Earth's temperature as a cooling source, or you could also use that stable Earth temperature as a heating source. So don't forget low-tech as well. Well, I hope you found this video entertaining and helpful, and if you did, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel, you've clicked that notification bell, you're commenting, you're liking, you're sharing the videos, and until next time, peace be with you.